Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore and Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, HBO is ramping up the propaganda machine for the Last of Us TV series, something that nobody cares about, that nobody wants to see, that nobody wants to support, but, it's still getting made anyway. So, as a result of that, it was at the Game Awards, and like some weird discussions, some weird interview clips have gone live, specifically from this guy, the producer on the show. I almost said game, but it is a TV show. Regarding the, let's see, let me see if I can find it because I posted it a while back. Most games are pretty simple. You jump on enemies, you die, you have to insert another chord to continue. The Last of Us changed that. So the narrative coming from Sony right now is that The Last of Us is the game that got us out of the arcade era. Instead of just popping in quarters to like get a run at Donkey Kong, you're invested in this deep human drama between two characters, a father and a daughter, trying to survive a post-Trump apocalyptic wasteland. Like, huh? Really? Are you serious? Like, is that really the line you're going with? That The Last of Us is like the most human, relatable movie game in existence? Like, it's not true, obviously. Like, everyone has like disputed this for a long time. Like serious gamers have talked about like how there are so many more like compelling storylines in gaming and how The Last of Us isn't really that special. I'll talk about how it's a knockoff of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I actually have sitting in front of me right now. I I've gone on record saying that like there's nothing special about The Last of Us. It's a generic zombie movie where you press like the left thumbstick forward in these like long drawn out like conversation segments. Like it is boring. And rest assured I'm talking about the original, not the sequel, which it seems like the establishment is ramping up like the propaganda in regards to that because it feels like most people aren't really talking about the problems with The Last of Us Part 2. Like, if someone talks about that quote where Neil Druckmann talks about the game not being fun, oh, we don't use the word fun. Like, traditionally that was seen as like a big red flag for the game's development. Like, a very early red flag that like Neil Druckmann had no idea what he was doing. But instead, it's become this like the shills have like warped the statement and like tried to say that like he meant something else, which isn't really true. And now we're kind of seeing like the same thing here, right? Where the cope is that I think the light is too bad. Oof, let me fix that. You dare shed light into my lair? Oh, okay. What was I? Where was I getting at? Well, the cope is that The Last of Us is misunderstood. Like that's the cope is that like gamers are too unsophisticated to understand what like Neil Druckmann was going for, and that The Last of Us is just too good for us console playing plebs. But in reality, people are seeing through Druckmann's nonsense. People are seeing through Naughty Dog. The people who are lifelong fans of Naughty Dog, people who would stand by, derivative products like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Uncharted, and finally The Last of Us have jumped ship with The Last of Us Part 2. And now we're kind of in this phase where they're doing the same thing they've always have is talk like a big game, but they can't really back it up. And now they don't really have the fan support to justify their nonsense, to give them credence to the idea that like, oh, maybe there are people who enjoy this because no, nobody enjoyed The Last of Us Part 2. And like in a lot of ways they didn't enjoy The Last of Us Part 1. The remaster was a complete disaster. People don't like to admit it. But like the story wasn't good to begin with in the original Last of Us. But like now looking at it in like the context of The Last of Us Part 2, it gets even worse, you know? And nobody wants to admit it because nobody wants to admit that like The Last of Us, like gaming's golden movie game, the best story in gaming, it wasn't that good to begin with. Like nobody wants to admit that. And so we're kind of in this like weird phase where like the IP is clearly dead, but people like Druckmann and people like this HBO guy, they're still trying to keep it alive by any means necessary, you know, by propping it up as like the best story in gaming. Um, no, it's not going to work. Like nobody's excited for the TV show. Nobody's excited about future Last of Us properties. Nobody cares about like the multiplayer project they're working on. It's over. Neil Druckmann is done. Naughty Dog is finished. PlayStation as a whole is finished. And finally, I hope we can move past this IP and move on to greener pastures, more interesting, innovative, and thought-provoking games. This game was never good to begin with. It will never be good. It was never good. It will never be good. And it's time to stop talking about it. You know, it's time we reach the point where we just establish this as a consensus that The Last of Us was never good and move on. Because I don't want to hear people talking about this product ever again.